Thank you for Chairman. Hello everyone. I'm Akira Maenosono, a master student of Kyushu University. I'd like to talk about crystallographic orientation-dependent growth mode of microstructurally fatigued small crack in a laminated titanium 6 aluminum 4 vanadium alloy. At first, I introduce background of my research. Titanium 6 aluminum 4 vanadium alloys possesses advantageous properties like specific strength and thermal corrosion and so on. Therefore, this alloy have been used widely. However, one of the problems of this alloy is large scatter of fatigue life. This is derived from statistical scatter of uncontrollable material factors. So to ensure safety, we have to estimate excessive safety factor. Therefore, it is necessary to understand the mechanisms underlying the scatter of fatigue properties. Then we consider fatigue crack propagation life. In this graph, DADN was plotted against stress intensity factor range. Fatigue crack propagation life is divided into two stages. Red line is called stage 1 and blue line is called stage 2. In my research, microstructurally small crack is a part of stage 1. And in stage 1, scatter of In stage 1, scatter of crack growth rate is large and strongly affected by material factors. Therefore, the aim of this research is to clarify the mechanism of fatigue life scatter in microstructurally small fatigue crack. Then I introduce material factors of full laminated titanium 6 aluminum 4 vanadium alloy. This is phase map of this alloy. This alloy consists from two phases. The main phase is alpha phase, showing this light blue color, which has HCP structures. The other phase is beta phase, showing this dark blue color, which has BCC structures. The microstructure of this alloy is shown in this picture and schematic. Alpha RAS is this red plate, and beta phase is this blue line. Alpha RAS and beta phase alternately laminated. The region in which uniform alignment direction is referred to as colony. And intergranular alpha sheet exists interface between colony and prior beta grain boundary. Then next is SIP system of alpha titanium. Alpha titanium has these sweep systems: prismatic, basal, pyramidal. Though the main sweep system is prismatic, basal plane has an important role in my study. Next is experimental procedure. The test material is titanium 6 aluminum 4 vanadium alloy. The chemical composition of this alloy is shown in this table, and the specimens were heat treated 1023 Kelvin for 30 minutes and subsequently cooled in the furnace. The microstructure sizes are shown in this table, and the microstructure is full laminated structure like this picture. Here is specimen geometry. Microstructurally small artificial defects like this scheme were introduced by focused ion beam at the center of the prior beta grain. And fatigue tests were carried out at this condition and coupled with in situ SEM observation. After test, EBSD were carried out to get crystallographic characterization of around crack. Next is results and discussion. First, I introduce crystallographic feature of crack plane. It was reported that crack planes tend to be along basal plane. So we calculate the fraction of fatigue cracks along basal plane. For the sake of simplicity, the data until the crack-Smith colony boundaries are analyzed, and basal plane trace were measured by EBSD. In this graph, the fraction was plotted against angle between notch alignment and basal plane, like this angle. As you can see, in my research, crack plane tend to be along basal plane too. And the shear stress on basal plane was superimposed on this graph. The value was calculated by this equation. This equation is the shear stress on basal plane. As you can see, when significant shear stress were applied, the fatigue crack preferentially propagated along basal plane. So in this research, we focus on mode 2 crack growth along basal plane. Second, I explain crack tip deformation and crack growth mechanisms. This is basal plane trace line, and here is C-plane, and this is crack plane. As you can see, C-plane and crack plane are parallel to basal plane. Therefore, this is the evidence of mode 2 fatigue crack growth along basal plane. And this movie was taken at every 100 megapascal during loading and unloading, and this picture was taken at 800 megapascal during loading and unloading. These orange arrows indicates the identical positions. As you can see, the crack tip shelf without opening. This is the evidence of mode 2 crack tip deformation. So in summary, the shear stress-induced local slip near the crack tip causes damage accumulation on the basal plane, which causes further crack propagation. Third, I report crack growth behavior across prior beta grain boundary. These pictures were taken at every 800 megapascal during loading and unloading. And here is intergranular alpha sheet. At first, when crack tip reached intergranular alpha sheet, a tiny void forms in front of crack tip and interface between intergranular alpha sheet and colony. Then subsequently coalesced with crack tip, and after crossing prior beta grain boundary, the crack growth direction changed. These are factors of fatigue life scatter. Fourth, I explain that scatter of fatigue life associated with mode 2 crack growth. As shown in previous section, dominant fatigue crack growth mechanism is mode 2 type along basal plane. In other words, driving force of crack growth is shear stress on basal plane. However, basal plane of HCP structures are parallel, like this scheme. So this fact promotes scatter of shear stress on basal plane became larger. As a result, this scatter causes large fatigue life scatter. This is my conclusion. Microstructurally small fatigue crack growth behaviors depends on crystallographic orientation. The dominant crack growth mechanisms was the mode 2 crack growth mechanisms by shear stress along the basal plane as a driving force. The dominant factors that causes large scatter of fatigue life in an alpha titanium 6 aluminum 4 vanadium alloy is as below. The difference in dissolved shear stress along the basal plane and the random position of pre-existing damage. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 2 or 3 minutes for discussion now. If you have any question, please.
Thank you for the presentation. It's not very clear for me why the shear stress along the basal plane explains the scatter in the fatigue life.
Just video.
In other crystal structure has equivalency plane, many equivalency plane. So we can choose maximum slip plane. Basal plane is parallel, so if crack grows along basal plane, dissolved shear stress is only 1. However, like this prismatic plane, we can choose maximum 1 of 3. Sorry.
Okay. Friendly help.
I'm a co-author of this work. So also, let me comment on one point. One is a very common thing for the HCP, as he explained, so basal plane is only 1. That is very general thing. But for example, in the magnesium alloy, not only for the mode 2, also the mode 1 fatigue crack growth also occurs. But I don't know why exactly, but in the titanium, particularly this alloy, really the preferential is mode 2 on the basal plane. Only this plane can be activated for the crack propagation path. Therefore, to accommodate the stress at the crack only can be accommodated by the mode 2 crack propagation along the basal plane. This is very strange because also the prismatic slip also occurs in a titanium, but the prismatic slip plane cannot act as a crack plane. Therefore, we say as a crack propagation path and associated driving force, assuming that only the basal plane can be activated, then that is a strongly, that is a strong factor causing the scatter in the fatigue crack growth, particularly in this alloy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation.